Hello and welcome to 2023. We're glad to have you join us on today's episode of Engendered on KAFTAN TV. And like we always say, this is a show where we discuss all issues relating to the female gender. I am Chidinma Ufomadu.
And of course, really welcome to 2023. Of course, another year in which we've hoped we'll see. And here we are again on Engendered, bringing you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. I am Victoria Agbi. But right before we continue the show, let's quickly go on a short break. We will be right back. Stay with us.
Glad to have you back on this segment of Engendered on KAFTAN television. And like we said before the break, this is a show where we discuss all issues revolving around the female gender and compliments of the season. Welcome to 2023. Victoria, how do you feel about this new year? How is it starting up for you?
One thing I said before we went on that way was it was a year we hoped we'll see because it was much anticipated for. And it just came all of a sudden. Like, I'm surprised I'm even like seeing the 2023, but well, 2023 is
not making mistakes like that, right?
Yeah.
It looks so like we were discussing on the show this morning. We said the most anticipated 2023, the year of the election is finally here, and before we know it, election will be like less than 1 month's time. And everybody, please do well to get your PVC. It is very, very important. Go, like I saw someone posted on her status this morning that she had to queue up for a long time to get the PVC, but that's what it takes for us to have a better Nigeria. She would actually do that.
Well, I feel like there's still much honest to be done by the INEC Commission. They should make the steps less rigorous and much easy so that the citizens can get their PVCs, because of course we always advocate for them to take the PVCs, because that is the key to changing the government.
Sometimes some people are not always that patient. Someone like me, if I get under the sun, I can't be. I don't like it.
I do not like crowd.
Okay.
So I don't think I would want to stand on the queue for long hours.
A long time.
No.
She said she went so early and she spent about I think 6 hours because the queue was long before she was able to get. But
surprisingly, you notice that people are actually zealous about getting their PVCs. They wouldn't mind. At this point,
but even if we would not mind, because there's something that they say about Nigerians is that we are able to adapt to anything. It is not fair on us. It is not fair. We put a lot to. If you hear the amount of money invested in making sure these PVCs are available, easier methods should be used. We don't have to be going through all those rigorous processes. When we went to register, we had to queue. I personally witnessed bribery and corruption go on in that place. People sorting their way to go in and stuff like that. So we don't have to go through that process again. It shouldn't be. Okay, so we've spoken about our PVC. Now let's move on to issues revolving around the female gender. And to begin this episode today, we have a pretty guest in the studio. She's really pretty. Okay, she's really pretty. Her name sounds like, I don't know, Chin Chon. Like, I don't know. But I thought, no, like, I was speaking to Nigeria, I don't really know. So let me just give you. Her name is Dorkong Rimdan. I had to write it down so I don't forget. Dorkong Rimdan, and she's a menstrual hygiene advocate. And we're going to be discussing menstrual hygiene on today's episode. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm trying to avoid your name.
Oh my god, I get that a lot. But no, little practice and you'll be fine.
Okay, so what does it mean?
It means to forget your sorrows.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so you see why I don't like to give my English name.
Okay, you're welcome to the show today. So we are going to be discussing menstrual hygiene, like I rightly told you. But I want to read something here about menstrual hygiene before we begin our discussion. So here it says, there's a story of a lady. They start on a conversation on menstrual hygiene. Valerie's story. Menstruation is not a dirty word, but for girls like Valerie, she's 13 years old, the word menstruation is spoken only in hushed whispers between her and her grandmother. Valerie says, when I had my first period, I was scared. I didn't want to move around and I just stayed in the house. Valerie attends one of the urban primary schools, and she likes writing stories and she gets high points in English. She said people make fun and gossip about girls who get stains on their skirts, she said. She recalled the time when one of her classmates had her period at school. All the students, especially the boys, were pointing at her and laughing. At that time, I didn't have my period yet, so I didn't think much of it. But when I had it, it frightened me. That's Valerie speaking. When I have my period, I am not allowed to prepare food, so I let my grandmother know when I am menstruating. I don't play when I have it, and I just sit down and watch. My cousin, she had menstruation for the first time, and for the whole month she stayed at home. Her parents leaned on the customs side, so my cousin was taught not to move around, and so she stayed only in her bedroom. Valerie said that missing class for a month affected her cousin's grades. She was a high-performing student, but her marks went down. And she said, my grandma, she taught me a bit about menstruation, but I learned from outsiders. I learned the reason why we have our period, how to wash my hands, keep healthy, and how to dispose my rubbish. She quoted, she referred to her menstrual pad as my rubbish, because that's the way it was referred to. She said, we have more work to do with schools. Okay, now she's grown up, and she was talking about her story then. She said, we have more work to do with schools, the community, and the government to ensure that women and girls receive adequate guidance on menstrual hygiene management, including safe and proper hygiene. We need to work together to figure out effective ways to ensure that there is adequate supply of water and rubbish bins. So now, this is Valerie's story. She just gave an insight of what she went through growing up and having a menstruation for the first time. And we're going to be discussing, she referred to her menstrual pad as her rubbish. So we're going to be discussing menstrual hygiene. But before we move into that particular aspect of menstrual hygiene, I'd like you to explain to the viewers what menstruation is and how it happens.
All right. So first off, I must say that's a very touching story, and definitely not the first time I've heard a story like that. Menstruation can be described as the shedding of the inner lining of the uterus. So that might sound like a lot of grammar for somebody who is probably not a biology student, or biology is not their favorite subject. How I can put it in a very, very simple term is to just explain that every month a woman's body prepares for pregnancy.
Okay.
So most people assume that menstruation is the entire menstrual cycle. No, those are two different things. Menstruation is only a phase of the menstrual cycle. There are about 4 major phases. So there's the follicular phase, there's the menstruation itself, there's the ovulation phase, and there's the luteal phase. But menstruation is that period where your body as a woman begins to form a thicker inner lining. So we know that we have ovaries, and so from the ovary, one egg is released through the fallopian tube to the uterus. So when that egg is released, the inner lining is always there in our bodies, but it gets thicker during our menstruation period, so that the egg can have somewhere to just cushion, like that would serve as a cushion to it, so it doesn't fall out. So that is that thickening when the egg is not fertilized, begins to shed and come out as blood and tissue, and there's so many proteins and other things in that fluid that comes out of the body, and it comes out through the vagina. That is what menstruation is. So when we talk about menstrual hygiene has to do with the entire process of getting information about your menstruation, accessing the menstrual hygiene facilities that a lady, a woman, or an adolescent girl needs, and just the entire knowledge. So menstrual hygiene has to do with the entire information around menstruation and how a girl can keep her body and how she can access those very important things that she needs during that period.
Well, it is said that menstrual hygiene management is the most, of course, essential aspect of a girl child, or maybe a woman and adolescent. Why is this so?
Okay, so just how I started off, I mentioned that, it's the period where the body prepares for pregnancy, and we all know that we would not be here today if your mother was not pregnant for you, and you weren't birthed into this world. So it is very important, because that is the genesis of a human being. Right, so when the sperm comes into, when there's a sexual intercourse, that's when the egg is fertilized and a child is born. But we all know that there is a time for everything, and there's a phase in life. So as adolescent girls, they'll be experiencing menstruation a lot of times, and of course we know they'll get to a certain age where they are now finally prepared to have children. So before that period, you just have to get used to what different changes that happens in your body, and understand what happens during that period, because there'll be a lot of changes. So getting this sort of information and enlightening girls, so they don't become scared or begin to feel afraid when certain things happen in their body, is very important.
Okay, so talking about menstrual hygiene still, from our research we discovered that there are types of menstrual hygiene. I think we have the good and the bad menstrual hygiene. Can you give us an insight on those types of menstrual hygiene?
Okay, so I wouldn't want to say that there's good and bad menstrual hygiene, but I would say that there are very, very poor menstrual hygiene practices that are out there. So there are different types of menstrual hygiene management, and it's just, first of all, has to do with your personality, what works for you, finding out what works for you, finding out how your body reacts to the different types of menstrual hygiene options that you may decide to opt for, finding out what kind of activities you engage in every day, and all of these things help frame how the decision you make when it comes to which of the menstrual hygiene kits that you may want to opt for. So we have the very popular sanitary pads or sanitary napkins that people may know about. Those ones have adhesives at the back of them so they can stick to your underwear. We also have tampons. Tampons are those ones that are thick cottons that you can insert into the vagina to absorb the blood. Then we have the menstrual cups. Menstrual cups are, just like the name implies, small flexible cups that are also inserted into the vagina. And then we also have disposable or we have non-disposable pads. They're just like the regular sanitary pads, but this time around is sewn in such a way that after use you can always wash and reuse. Yes, I see how you found your face. Not everybody's excited about the particular option. So it depends on your personality, depends on your body system. Just find out what works for you and stick with it, basically. Okay,
now talking about what works for you.
Yeah.
That particular pad that you wash, how hygienic is it?
Okay. So what I would say is that not everybody has access to all the options of menstrual hygiene kits that I have mentioned. So some people are left with the only option of reusing these non-disposable pads, if I can call them that, for the purpose of this conversation. And the fact that they are made in such a way, the materials that are used, they use materials that can easily be washed off, can be rinsed, but there are step-to-step processes that are laid down for people to follow. So when you don't have solid or complete sufficient information on how to sanitize those reusable pads is where you may begin to experience issues. So the people who are distributing these non-disposable or reusable pads are the people with the responsibility of breaking it down to the users how it should be used so it doesn't turn out to be a problem tomorrow.
All right, let me quickly ask now, at what stage is it relevant for one to begin to discuss sanitary management? Yes, at what stage for an adolescent is it important?
Okay, I would say as early as possible, because as you know, Oh, well, I did not say that in the definition. I should have. So young girls begin to experience menstruation as early as 7 years. That's one of the earliest I've heard of. There may be earlier, and some could also wait till they are 12, 13 years. So within 7 to 13 years, girls begin to see their menstruation. So I think early information is great. As early as they are able to understand basic things, you know, and you are able to have such adult conversations with them is early enough. So if you have your child seeing her period by 7 and by 6 you haven't started preparing her mind that this could happen, then you are definitely putting her and the entire society in trouble.
Okay, now I remember you mentioned menstrual cup.
Yeah,
I think I have seen it before. Once it's like a tiny funnel or so.
yeah.
How safe is this?
It is very safe, and when you talk about safe, okay, so health related safe, it's safe. In fact, it's one of the most so when you're opting for any of these options, they would usually tell you the duration that you can use one. The disposable pads, 8 hours maximum, but 6 hours is ideal. The other ones they'll tell you within 6 to 8 hours. Well, when it comes to the cups, they say you can use it for as long as 12 hours. You can even use it overnight. You can use it for exercise. So because these cups are washable and they are not outside of the genitals, they go right inside, so you push it all the way in, and so when it's inside there, it does not come in contact with air. As you know, the menstrual blood smells, and that is because it's exposed to air. So it's that air, blood and air, you know, or fluid and air come in contact, and then it causes that smell. But when you're using the cup, because it is directly facing the bottom of the uterus, it's dripping directly into the cup, no air has gotten there, so it's not going to smell, and if you place it correctly, it's not going to spill. So there are also directions on how you can use that. I would say it's very safe. I haven't used it before, but then I have seen videos. I have also seen it like in person. I've heard stories. It's pretty reliable, and for some people that's the best option for them because of the different activities they may have to engage in every day.
Just like the tampons you mentioned, sorry.
Yeah.
I think I have not been able to use it before.
Okay.
There was a time when I was on my period, I asked someone to help me bring a pad because I was somewhere, and the person told me she only has tampons. I'm like, I have not used that before. So
I'm not ready to try.
I'm not ready to try it. I feel like when you're working, don't you feel like there's something in between your vagina or something? But some people say it's very comfortable for them.
Yes. I think it also applies with our underwears. You know, there are certain kind of undies. Let me say the G-string, and then the regular pants, and then the bumper shorts, or what do we call those other ones that look like bump shorts? So, you know, it just what works for you. Some people are comfortable wearing G-strings, some people are not comfortable wearing them. But one thing I do know by stories and research I have done is that once you insert it, you almost forget that it is there.
It's true.
Because it goes inside, right inside, and it's pretty safe. So it's for those of them with the mind to do the pushing, because that alone makes me uncomfortable.
Exactly.
All right, you know, I was going to ask, is menstrual hygiene actually an issue for rural adolescents, because adolescent schoolgirls? Because I've heard where people say menstrual hygiene is only for the rich, like, because to some extent the poor rural ladies or girls in the rural areas do not have access to, of course, sanitary pads. They use napkins and the rest of it. So is this an issue for those schoolgirls in the rural areas?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, sorry, let me cut you there. So before you answer, I think we'll go on a break now.
All right then.
All right, viewers, we'll go on a short break, and when we come back, Engendered continues. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. You're still watching Engendered, and we've been discussing menstrual hygiene with our guest in the studio. And before we went on that break, I asked a question as to if menstrual hygiene is an issue for adolescent girls in the rural areas.
And I said yes, absolutely. So it is. In fact, I think that is one of the reasons we're having this conversation today, because period poverty is a huge problem globally. In fact, it's a global problem. But then it's worse in poorer countries, right? And we do know how Nigeria is faring when it comes to our placings amongst other countries. So yes, it is a major problem, and this is because a lot of young girls are not informed early enough. Like the question you asked earlier, some of them don't have the information, they don't get it earlier. Back to the story that you shared, this was her name again, Valerie's story. You see where there's the issue of stigmatization. So even when there are questions on their minds and they want to ask, because boys will laugh at them and even girls will laugh at them too, which is quite sad. The person would not want to speak up. There's also the issue of parents who are not open to their words, and you expect these people to actually help set the background, because the teachers can do all the work in school. Then we talk about the facilities, and the facilities available for these girls to even practice what they are being taught, because you tell them, okay, go to the restroom and be able to do this and do that, and when you get there you don't see anything, you don't even see water in the first place, and we know how vital water is. So it is, in fact, even as adults, I'm sure we can all admit that at some point, even till today, like you are out in public and you want to access water when you are on your period, it's a struggle. Or even sanitary pads, maybe you have run out of it, or you did not expect it at that time and you cannot access it. How much more a younger girl who is just trying to find her way around the world?
Okay, now, so talking about this, so how are we going to ensure that there's availability of pads for these ladies? Because sorry to cut you, like when we're talking about the menstrual hygiene, some girls don't know that there's a difference between body odor and the smell from the blood. Some people, when they're on their period, they really smell awful, and they tell you because I'm on my period. Some people don't know that it's not normal. You get people don't understand that it's not normal. And I was able to, the time I discovered that there was a girl in school, she was using wrapper to do her period, and she didn't know how to handle it. She just started, she didn't know who to talk to. She couldn't talk to the house mother or anybody, and she started using wrapper. And after using the wrapper, she tied it in a nylon and put it in a box. That when her mom comes, she'll give her mom to go and dispose. And the room was smelling. Whenever she opens her box, and I'm like, what's smelling in this place you get? And then I eventually told the house mother. That was tagged the snitch in school. Then that was in my jest one, I guess. I was tagged the snitch because I went to tell the house mother, and I told her, like, it's not like I was going to report you, but you do not know what to do, and I had not started my menstruation then. I'm not in a position to tell you what to do. I took it to the person that I felt like she can advise you on what to do. So how do we ensure that, okay, these parts are available for young girls whenever they need it?
Now, that's a very huge question, and I tell you that this question and the fight to make pads available for girls in Nigeria did not start today, and even globally, it's a fight that has been ongoing. In fact, I was just having a conversation with a friend before coming to the studio, and we were talking about condoms, because I had to ask, I'm like, wait, how do they sell condoms today again? And then he was selling the price. I was like, okay, and to think that these condoms are given for free. Why hasn't it ever been distributed freely? Like when it comes to sanitary pads, why don't we see this being made available in public toilets, or even being distributed freely like they do with condoms? Because as we know, sex is voluntary, but menstruation is involuntary. These are not things that we plan for. It's just our system. It works.
I wish I can pause it until when I need it.
Yes. You see, so making it available, my goodness, it's the responsibility of everyone.
Well, I see CSOs and groups go out to give out parts.
Absolutely.
Parts.
So myself and my team, we do there's a campaign that we have ongoing, #PadOpGirl, and what we do is to just solicit funds and go to areas where girls are in need of sanitary pads and try to distribute those pads to them, but not just distribute, but also to inform them about the menstrual hygiene and their health and all of that. So like we have all agreed, the NGOs, CSOs, they have a role to play, bringing funds, supplying the girls with these sanitary pads. But then it doesn't end there. Okay, giving them the sanitary pads is not the end of it. But just before we go to the other aspects of it, let me keep mentioning other people that are involved. The government too needs to play her role in ensuring that the price of sanitary pads are reduced. According to a survey by ICIR, an average getting a pad, even within the FCT, is that within 500 to 2,000 naira.
Yeah, 600 now.
See, that's about the least amount you can get for sanitary pads.
That's still some of 400 and something.
Oh, really?
400 and something, so we can say 400, but that report actually showed within 500 to 2,000 naira here in the FCT, and not everybody can afford that. So if the government can help just bring down the price, make it free. We really want it to be free, but maybe you can start off by having the prices subsidized, and then parents and wards also just playing a part in providing it. So we have people who don't have their biological children staying with them, and so they may decide to treat them anyhow and tell them to use newspapers. Yes, I have heard of stories of girls who actually use newspapers and are taught by elderly women to use newspapers, to use cloths, like you also shared a story as well. So if they can just try until a girl is independent, until she can fend for herself and get pads for herself, you know, just be there, supply and help and teach them how to dispose it. It would now be a good time to talk about the other aspect of menstrual hygiene.
Maybe before you go to that other aspect, let's talk about disposing of pads.
Okay.
This has been a major controversy as to how, where you should dispose your pad. In your own opinion, what is the appropriate method of disposing the pad? As
a matter of fact, that is indeed the other aspect of the menstrual hygiene. So yes, when we talk about menstruation, yes, the menstruating and the materials that are used during that period is one aspect. Now the facilities is another thing. So we need toilets that are made, that should be made available. Okay, so we need safe rooms, safe places for girls, because you know, it's one thing to go to the toilet and ease yourself. It's another thing to actually need the privacy to wash off that blood. You need soap, you need water, and clean water at that. I was just reflecting on a story of a girl at Kwali Area Council here in the FCT, and she was talking of how she uses mud water during her period. And it's so bad that when she's easing herself, she shared that the fluid that comes out from her body is so yellowish that she's not sure whether it is as a result of her menstruation or it's the effect of the water. But she says during that period it's just messy. She tries to put alum in the water just so she feels clean. So you know, she's really going through a very tough time,
and it's very irritating. Like, trust me, sometimes when guys make a fuss about, or girls, you're always saying on your period, you use your period as excuse for so many things you do. I don't think we understand how irritating it can be. That when, first and foremost, you wake up in the morning, you start having signs of cramps.
Yeah.
When you start having cramps, for some people, they poo a lot when they're on their period.
Oh yes.
It happens
because a lot of things are just from your
and at that point, imagine coming to the office with that kind of mood. It's very annoying that you have to work and then you always have to go to the toilet to poo, and then you have to wash up. Some people are always on heavy flow. Some people always have heavy flow. They easily get stained, and now when they get stained, people are looking at them. Instead of you to just walk up to her and say, "Oh, you are stained, just go and change or clean up yourself," and some people start laughing at them.
Yeah.
In secondary school, it's as bad as if you are not properly sensitized. Boys take pictures of a girl that is stained and post it on their group chats. We've had stories about that. The stigmatization about it that comes about all those things. So I can imagine what that girl is going through, not having access to clean water during her period. She has to wash up, trying to feel clean, and she's still using dirty water to then clean her body again. So how do we now deal with, like, what I mentioned about the secondary school stuff? How do we now deal with the stigmatization now?
Okay, I know that I was still in the process of mentioning how we should dispose the sanitary pads.
Let's go back to that. I'm sorry.
Okay. So in disposing the sanitary pads, when you are eventually able to, and if this is the disposable sanitary pad that you are using, you need to. Okay, so different things work for people. Maybe I should first share how I dispose mine. So you peel off the adhesive of course, I mentioned that it has an adhesive part that you stick to your cloth. So you take it off, then you wrap it. You wrap it well. If you notice that when you are opening your disposable sanitary pad, there's this sticky material that is always placed at the lid. So use that sticky mat. I don't dispose of it until I'm done with my period. So when you're done, you roll up the disposable sanitary pad. Use that sticky material to stick it on the pad. Use the wrap that was used to initially wrap the pad when it was new to also roll it up, and then you now put it in maybe a newspaper. Sometimes I do like to still wrap it up in newspaper, because I recall one thing that my teacher in school would always say, that if anybody gets to see even a drop of your blood, then it's a shame as a girl. So you need to cover up, wrap up, wash up, clean up, make sure that you're leaving no stains behind. So going the extra mile with newspaper is also a good idea. So you wrap it up, and then you can now take it to a general recyclable bin. Of course, this is not your kitchen waste bin that goes on it at an incinerator is better. Some people may decide to burn it up. Some people may take it to a more larger incinerator. So now that's one way that you can dispose of it. But flushing it down the toilet is not advisable, because it could block the drainage system of the toilet. But something that I do know some people do is to peel off, if you are able to
wash the pad.
Yeah, so they tear it open, because there's cotton inside, there's cotton inside that dilutes in water. So some people feel like,
I don't know what the inside is like.
There are all sorts of taboos. They say they may want to use it for your blood, for this, and one menstrual, and also, and we have seen stories. I recall in Guarimpa, a lady shared a video of somebody, one of these guys who usually goes to pick trash, and he gathered up to about 5 or 6 of her sanitary pads that she had dumped in a dustbin. So he actually went hand picking just her used pads. So I don't even blame people when they are this paranoid. So if you want to go the extra mile, you may also want to peel up the outer parts and then dispose them separately.
Well, some people would actually use this method, because sometimes if you want to burn them, you have to keep them for like days before it's dried up, and then it's the smell and the rest. It's not really nice.
And even when you're burning it, you can't just burn it in your the front of your house. No, you need to make sure that it's a general incinerator where you're actually burning that.
When I was in school, I went to the bathroom one day and I saw a girl washing the pad. Okay, she was washing her pad. I was in the next bathroom, and the way our drainage was, as water is coming from bathroom 1, it's entering bathroom 2. That's the way it's passing.
Oh yes, I remember that.
So it was going straight down like that, and then you're seeing that it's just going blood. I'm like, what's going on in this place? So did someone injure or something? For me to come out and I saw that she was actually washing her pad. She said she had to wash off the blood before she disposes it, and I'm like, okay, that's a new one. That's when I was in secondary school. I'm like, that's a new one, but I don't think, first of all, I don't even have the energy to do that. When I'm on my period, I don't like stress. I don't have the energy to do that.
Not everybody can stand the sight of blood.
I don't have the energy. Even the way it smells, I'm already feeling irritated. That patience to stay and be washing my pad is a no-no for me. I don't think I can do that.
Some people also, depending on maybe the pit toilets, so people who use the pit toilet may decide to throw that inner part in the pit toilet where it's easily flushed out. So different things for different people.
Exactly, different things, and that's another thing that comes up with what your mother teaches you. Because most of the time, this is the way my mom said I should do it.
Some from friends too.
Yeah,
some friends. So some people will tell you this is the way I was taught that I should dispose it this particular way. Because the thing about it, there are sometimes that you would keep them all together, because you keep them all together, you trash them in one particular. I do it sometimes, and I keep them all together, put them in a newspaper. When I'm done everything together, then put it in a black nylon, then trash it outside where they usually burn it. Sometimes some people find it irritating, because I don't know how to dispose it one after the other. I don't know how to dispose it, but the problem now with that one is if you don't keep it properly,
it's going to attract flies,
a whole lot of
smell, and
so you keep on tying it. I don't know how to dispose it one after the other and the other. So I put it all together and then trash it out. But you have to ensure that wherever you're keeping it is a safe place where you don't get attracted to
Honestly,
it.
that's it too. True.
That's the thing.
I would encourage to go the extra mile of just trashing it as it comes, but if you must keep it and you can keep it well and away
Because
from
like
people.
what Victoria rightly mentioned, when if you want to burn it,
Yeah.
you can't burn it when it is wet. Actually, you can't
Only
actually
you
do that.
pour maybe kerosene or petrol.
No, it
Does it
won't work. It doesn't.
It doesn't work. I
Yeah.
haven't even tried it.
It doesn't work.
Wow.
So you have to keep them for like days, like throughout the whole maybe circle,
It's to dry out.
so it can dry. Then you burn all together.
Wow.
So the thing is, why it's like, you know, this thing actually started from when we were in school, and we started seeing stories of people, like you rightly mentioned, people picking off pads. You get. So our husband used to tell us, keep track of your pad. How many did you use? She used to ask you that question. How many did you use? And you say, okay, in a day you maybe use 2 or 3. Are you sure? How did you dispose it and stuff? So from there, when you like the way you rightly mentioned that you wrap it and wrap it and wrap it, then later you wrap it inside the black nylon. But this method is actually advisable for people that don't just live in one room. You get that you have enough space where you can actually trash it. So you keep piling it there and you tie it. If you want to burn it, then you burn it outside. But please, if it doesn't work for you, don't do it. Don't make it smell. Don't make it smell.
There was something you mentioned, and I recall that I also did not state at the beginning, and that has to do with the premenstrual syndrome.
Okay.
And I think that's a very important point. It has to do with some signs and symptoms that come just before you begin to experience your menstruation. And not everybody is familiar with what works for them. Some people, it's very severe. They can't even go to work. For some people, it's very mild. Some of us really don't even know when it's happening. We just it's coming out of our body. I'm like, oh, it's that time again. So it's different for different people. But yes, it's important that you just know how your body works. So when it's coming, you're not taken by surprise. For some people, it may appear as pimples, and this is, like I said, before you begin to see your menstruation. It may be a few days, 5 days, 3 days, a week before. So you may begin to experience acne, pimples, stomach aches, in your lower abdomen.
Some people have fever.
Fever too.
Some people have fever. I had a friend that was always in the sick bay every time. She has to take drip.
Wow.
For it, and she had a heavy flow. She can use then always sanitary pad. That the heavy flow, she can use 1 in 2 days. Hers was very
The
serious.
entire pack of 7.
Yes.
Wow.
In
That's
2
I
days.
actually do wonder what causes those for those ladies actually that have so much cramps like during period. I don't know what.
You know, sometimes we hear about things like, for me now, you hear too much sugar and stuff. But I've practiced it. I've tried staying off sugar. The first day when it comes, that's when I experience the pain. It can be so unbearable sometimes. But after that first day, you move on. It's like nothing is happening again. You get. So I can't really explain why that pain. I heard things like when you give birth,
but yeah,
it doesn't happen to you.
You don't
I
experience
don't
cramps.
feel cramp. Like I take sugar when I want to see my period. During like before that week, I'll notice myself craving for sugary things, cake.
Oh.
And
Some people will tell you that the sugar helps you come out better. That's what some people say.
And yet I don't experience cramps. Then I'm seeing one lady lying down, rolling on the floor. I'm like, what's happening?
Like it's not the same menstruation.
It's just different body systems.
It happens to some people like that, and I really can't
Different.
explain why
There's
it
no
happens.
explanation. Even the scientists don't have the answer, I assure you, because I did my research. Even they do not have the answer to why it's severe for some people and it's almost nothing for other people. It's just your body make. And I think it's also the same way when it comes to pregnancy, you know, see me talking like I've had a child, but you know, from other stories that we have heard, you hear for some people labor is more intense than for other people, and it comes for some people different with early sickness or morning sickness for the others, and for some others it's something else. They're just different.
Yeah, even when I was growing up, I heard that when you put to bed, you stop having cramps. And I believed it so much, and I was so I believed it until I had a friend that put to bed and she still has cramps. I'm like, what's going on?
But I've heard that the pains are reduced.
She still has cramps. She still takes Felvin and all the whole painkillers to stop the cramps. So I'm wondering, like, I thought they told us that once that because maybe the blood, everything is packing up inside you, when you put to bed, everything comes out and is a whole different. But she still has cramps up to now. So sometimes when guys talk about menstruation, I'm like, it's not just they're like isn't just menstruation. They don't know what ladies go through.
It's a 2 days journey.
Yeah, the mood swing is not intentional. Nobody wants to come to the office moody. Like, it's as bad as somebody on a normal day, maybe for example your boyfriend might tickle you. When you're in your period, if it tickles you, might want to slap him.
Yeah, their mood swings.
Yes, like, because you feel you feel irritated at that point.
Irritability is also there.
Permit me, sometimes you're sitting there, you feel like something is just falling like you get, and you're trying to, is it going to fall out my own this? You don't know how to manage yourself at that point in time. So I think they should be able to understand at that point. So before I caught you before,
you know, I was talking about stigmatization.
That was about to say. So I was asking you about the stigmatization that comes with it. So how do we deal with this? How do we change the narrative? Because you see here some people that tell you that when a lady is on their period, there's some religion or there's some culture that will tell you they have to stay away for some time. They are unclean. This one says she was not allowed to cook. She was not allowed to associate with other people. So how do we deal with this?
And sometimes period or menstrual periods are usually not something you want to talk about in public, because you're ashamed. They say you should keep quiet. Shh. It's ladies talk now, so you only say it when it's amongst ladies and not in the midst of men and the rest of it.
I think this would be a good place to even just highlight some of those taboos and myths that are out there, because we must first know some of the lies that are spreading before we now talk about how we want to address and reduce the lies that we continue to hear out there. So I've heard of stories like you said, so when you're menstruating, it's a bad thing, it's evil. It means there's something evil or sinister about the girl when she begins to see her period, and so she's asked not to either go into the church or the mosque. You know, some religions actually prohibit ladies from going to the religious places when they're seeing their periods. Some others would say that
do not cook.
You shouldn't cook.
Or even if they go to church, you don't climb the altar.
Yeah. Some actually, even the Christians, some doctrines would say because you're a woman and because you see your period, you're not allowed to be a pastor. You're not allowed to be a reverend. Yes.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so we learned every day, right? So these are just some of those things, and there are also more stories that what country was it now, where when the girl is beginning to see her period, she's secluded to a different, like you're not living in the house anymore. They take you to a small room that you just stay until you're done with your period, and then you come back to the house and join. Some would say that you shouldn't shower when you're beginning to experience, when you start seeing your menstruation, you shouldn't bath at all. And that if you shower, it's going to bring bad omen or mean something. You know, there are just all sorts of lies, I must say. And what else? You know, there's so many, and I'm trying to make sure that we state these so that people know that they are all lies. They're not true. Because first off, God created us this way.
Exactly.
And it's all part of the process of bringing a child to the world. It's the beginning, it's the genesis of you being, you who is even telling lies in the first place. So it is normal, it is natural, and it's important that we continue to have this sort of conversation. So I must commend Engendered, this TV show, for having this sort of conversation on TV, because this is where we can begin to demystify those myths that are out there, talking about it and freely. Because some people say, no, like you said, don't talk about, shh, it's only in social places, in social gatherings we can have this conversation. It shouldn't be that way. If we can talk about sex generally and, enlighten people on what they should or should not know about it, talk about condoms and protections, why can't we talk about menstruation freely and using the terms correctly? Because some would say Auntie Flo is in town, or Mrs. Red has arrived, or my red soldiers are here again. All those terms are not helping at all. So, all of these terms are not even helping. It begins to feel like a topic that cannot be discussed. It should be and can be. And so this is the beginning of, reducing the stigmatization and enlightening boys as well. So menstruation education is not just for girls, it's also for boys. Because if the guys know, okay, this is something my sister is experiencing, this is something my daughter could experience, my mom has experienced, I should be able to treat, support, and help where I see she's in need. I shouldn't laugh at her. Laughing at her means I'm also laughing at myself, right? Because she's my family member, she's my sister. And you know, that way they would know to treat other ladies better and to help and be there. So I feel these are some of the ways that we can just help reduce that stigma. And it's also important that parents do their homework, and that's something I stated in the beginning. Parents, feel free, have these conversations with your girl child. Enlighten them. Did your mom have this conversation with you growing up?
She did.
Okay. How about you, Victoria?
Well, in a way.
In a way. I remember asking my mom a few questions, and you know, sometimes she's like, who told you that? And I'm like, Mommy, I just want to know, can you just tell me? You know, not every African parent is comfortable having these sorts of conversations, because we know that culture thing that just oppresses certain conversations in Africa is there, and it shouldn't be. We should be able, even your dad as a young child, okay, for example, you've lost your mom and it's only your dad and your brothers you have to grow up with. Does it mean you are doomed? No. This is why it's important that both sexes should have adequate information so they can help a girl, an adolescent girl or a woman when there is a need to.
Okay, I want to ask you made mention of men and the dad, and you cited an example. What if the dad is dead or something like that? When I was in school, when we have biology classes and we get to want to discuss this issue, the boys will say, oh, I beg, let's go out of the class. And sometimes some teacher will say, okay, this is actually the girls class. Sometimes there's this division, like, okay, it's time for the girls class, so the girls will separate from the boys and the rest. Do actually boys have a role to play when it comes to, of course, this period and what's it called, menstruation?
Yes, they do have a major role. Like I just highlighted, they should know. In fact, when we carry out our campaigns, we've gone on multiple outreaches, and you know, some of these schools are mixed schools, so we ensure that both sexes are in class. So boys, girls, you guys should see that we're all going to talk about this together as a group. We're one big family. Make them understand. But the only cases where we later excuse the boys is where we now need to hear from girls heart to heart. If they have questions, they want to open up about some challenges that they're facing, that's why we say, okay, boys, you may excuse us. But given the general knowledge about what menstruation is, I honestly think that everybody should know. It should be a conversation for everybody. Like I mentioned, menstruation is only one phase. So the other phases, the ovulation phase, you know, for adults now who want to have children, you see where the husband and the wife are calculating, okay, so this is my ovulation period. Yes. So this is where the egg, this is where we can do it, this is where we cannot do it. If the man doesn't know, when the lady is talking, he would be lost. So it's important that both sexes have that information. Also, when the lady begins to act a certain way and she's like, you know, I think I'm preparing for my period, one would easily understand, because they know what menstruation is and the whole menstrual cycle is like, and you know, it will just help the society in general, and I'm looking at it from a larger scale now.
Okay, so now let's look at this aspect. There's a question I want to ask. It might sound somehow to you guys, so there's a shy shade. But people always talk about it. Is it okay to have sex while menstruating?
Okay, so whether or not it's okay, I think it is an individual thing. It has to be up to you and your spouse. Hopefully you are having sex after marriage, right? So it's up to you and your spouse, or up to you and your partner to make that decision. But when it comes to the health aspect of it now, well, some experts would say it's not exactly safe, because you know, there's a lot of fluid exchange, and you know how sometimes, depending on even your partner's hygiene, level of hygiene, okay, what if during this period she's not changing at the right time, she's leaving her part to stay for such a long time, she contracts some sort of toilet infection during that period, and you know, you now mix all of this with intercourse, before you know it, you're transferring one infection or the other to your partner, you know. So these are just some of the health snags that are underlining. But when it comes to individuality, I think it's really up to you and your spouse. If you guys trust each other and you trust their level of hygiene and you're comfortable with that, fluidity going on there, down there, then it's up to
you know, I saw a story when going through for the topic, and I saw that somebody was asking a question. The girl actually asked this on Quora, and she was like, is it okay? Her boyfriend disturbs her for sex while she's menstruating. That is it okay to have sex? And according to her, she said his reason was that he feels that she's wet during that period. And the wetness helps him or something like that. So I wanted us to clarify it now, because some people are having, trust me, some people are broken up because of this issue. Some boyfriends are giving their girlfriends ultimatum this because of this particular issue. So like you rightly said, it varies from person to person. If you're ready to wash your bed sheets and do all the whole thing because it's a lot of work. Okay, now, so you mentioned something about the right time to change and stuff. So let us know, how long should we wear our pad? How many times should we have our bath? What should our routine be like in the bathroom and our pad?
All right, so if you're using the disposable pad, 6 hours tops. At most pads, 8 hours, but it's best that you just leave it for as long as 6 hours, and then you change at least 3 times a day, 4 times a day, and you should shower. But it's not everybody has access to clean water. So you know where we've been talking about somebody even looking for water to wash. Is it now bathing 4 times or 3 times a day you're talking about? So if you can't afford to shower 3 times twice a day, you can just ensure that you at least wash your genitals at least as often as you change, and it's expected that you change 3 times a day, depending on which of the sanitary materials that you are using. So if you're using that cup, remember that I said that you can use the cup for as long as 12 hours. So all you need to do when you're taking out the cup is just take it out, rinse it, and then insert it again. So it's also important that you use deodorants as well. Like we said, you know, when that air and blood come in contact, there is always going to be that ooze, that smell. Don't feel terrible that your blood or your fluid coming out of your body is smelling. It's normal, but then it's how you now keep yourself that is important, right? So change your undies. You can't use the same undie that you used today. You want to use it again tomorrow. Sometimes you see people's undies are stained, but they want to repeat that undie, and it's not good now.
What are people that have, and so people have period pants?
Yes.
And is it okay?
Yes.
So what kind of pants should be used for menstruations? Because I've heard some people say do not use nets, do not use cotton.
Yeah, because it absorbs. In fact, generally, cotton pants are the required pants for ladies because it absorbs moisture, and you know sometimes you can get sweaty down there. So this is even when you're not on your period. But when you're on your period, you may decide to use another texture of panties, and I say so because you have the disposable pad that is already covering up that place that would be in contact with your genitals. So if you're using the disposable pads, then I think you can use well, it's safe to just go for cotton because other parts of your body will become sweaty too now. So just go for cotton panties, or you can go for just a cheaper quality. So you can separate. What I do is to separate my menstruation pants from my regular pants, because when you're on your period and you get stained, you know, sometimes that fluid may get in direct contact with your regular panties, and who knows what biology occurs there. So you would want to just avoid maybe transferring bacteria and all sorts of things from your menstruation undies to your regular undies.
And sometimes the stains, they don't really go out completely. They might leave just on the white pants. It might not later turn yellow at a particular point. You get okay. Now, please, I have a question. How do people wear G-strings on their menstruation? Like, how comfortable is this? I don't know. Is it okay?
So you see when we come back to that individuality thing again, right?
Okay.
So
what about those that use cotton wool? Some people use cotton wool. Yes.
During that period.
They just insert. I hope I'm not teaching people the wrong thing. Some people. I know of a girl. She would just take a lot of cotton wool and insert it into her vagina. So I asked her how she copes with it, and she said that once is the easiest for her, because once the cotton wool is full, she feels it and she just goes to the bathroom and
she feels it.
It's very easy to dispose because she just flushes down the drain.
That is very risky, I must say, especially because you see where tampon. So I think tampon would be a better option for someone like her who doesn't mind inserting some, because tampon is it has a lot of that cotton, but this time around it's compressed in such a way that it doesn't easily loose and separate in your vagina when you place it in, and you can easily pull it out because there's a string to just pull it out when you're done. So for someone like her, just imagine an accumulated cotton wool inside. How does she want to bring it out? And if it goes inside, it could block the finger. Yeah. What if your finger pushes it further in? How do you plan on bringing it out?
The tampon has a rope outside
there's a string to pull it out. So, and I think it's a good thing that you mentioned this, because this is why it's important we have this conversation, because there are a lot of side effects.
Some people say it's cheaper, that cotton wool is very cheap. People do it, trust me. And what I'm talking about now, I don't wear pants with it. They move about like that. Said it's just inside, that once it's time, they know, they feel it, they put their hand in and bring it out.
So there again we have that period poverty, because if you know the risk of that, you won't try that. Would you want to try something like that?
I've seen people do it, but let's just say not for just temporarily, not permanently. Like, okay, I couldn't access a pad immediately, right, so now I just what I have, I'll make it routine, and they go get a pad. You go ask, you have a pad, say I have cotton wool, do you want?
Or even tissue. All of those are not good because they have particles. There are certain particles that are not safe for your body, and what if it goes inside and it could block? You see, that's where reproductive issues begin to come up. Urinary tract infections begin to spring up. You know, there are so many infections that could come by using the wrong or unsafe sanitary materials.
Okay, you made mention of some of the taboos that comes along because of culture, of called Nigerian culture or African culture generally. Are there some positive side to menstruation? Well, you mentioned some. Can we know some more positive side of menstruation? Because when you're saying something is cost, maybe when we preach to people that there's actually a blessing for that thing, then it will go a long way of reducing the way the way people see it as a bad thing.
So I think the very first and good thing about it is that your blood or your fluid that comes out of your body during your period is not a dirty blood. People would refer to it as dirty blood or a bad thing. No, it is not a bad thing. It is not a wrong thing. You're first of all normal. It is okay. In fact, it is when you're not seeing your menstruation that you should be worried, and you should know that there's probably something wrong. It's a blessing because it is through this process that a child comes to the world, of course after fertilization by a male sperm. So it's a blessing, and it's also, I think it's a privilege. I would like to say that. And I say this because God has entrusted you, woman, with a womb, and to because he knows you can handle it. He wouldn't give you what you can't handle. He knows you can handle it. He has provided you with the body, with the system, with the temperament to be able to withstand all the challenges that may come with that period. So for me, I think that's a win. If another sex could have handled that, and I say this looking at the other sexes, we
also say they have their period too.
I think these are some of the pluses, that you are a woman, that you are both, you are beautiful, have been given this huge and unique responsibility. It is a big deal, and that you should pride yourself. You should,
because you know, when we ever mentioning the symptoms or the signs when you know that your menstruation is coming up, when we talk about the breasts, your nipple becomes sore, they start aching you, they feel so heavy. If you remove your bra, it feels like you're just dropping a stone. And then imagine walking on the road and someone mistakenly hits you. You're like, oh my god.
It hurts. You see, those are some of the many other signs.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been an interesting section with you.
What's her name again?
Don't know. It's been a great pleasure with you, with your name. I will Victoria, it's not fair. Alright, thank you so much, Dorkong. We hope to have you again some other time.
Thank you. I look forward to that.
Okay, viewers, that has been an interesting session with Dorkong. Shame on Victoria. And I hope you actually learned from our discussion. Please, if you are practicing some of those bad menstrual hygiene, please stop. Do well to have your baths regularly, change your pads regularly, dispose them properly. Look at your environment. If you're talking about if you want to burn them, people that used to store it up before they burn them, look for a place that is not close to your environment, where especially if you have children, you can't afford getting them infected with all this kind of bad smell and infection, flies coming up and down. The flies may actually still perch on your food. So please do well to dispose them properly. And like she rightly mentioned, the fact that we should be careful. There are some people that are picking it up somewhere. It's not a myth, it happens. It's actually happening, and we have to be careful about the way we dispose our pads. And parents too, please kindly inform your children on time. It is very unfair that they go to boarding house or they go to an environment and they just see that their period starts and they don't know what to do. Please inform them so that they will know what to do per time. Thank you so much. That has been an interesting session on Engender today. To do well to join us next time for an interesting episode. I remain Chidinma Ufomadu.
Well, I am Victoria Agbi.